Aleatzecha besason leirecha Simcha leatzecha besason leirecha Utzlichat keren David Abdecha Barichat Leben Ishai Meshichecha Utzlichat keren David Abdecha Barichat Leben Ishai Meshichecha Na 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 la 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 Is it happiness to our land, to the land, to your land, to your land. Who's talking to who? Simcha le'artzecha. Simcha le'artzecha. Who's talking to who? Happiness for your land. Sason li'recha. Joy for your city. It could be we're talking to Hashem. It could be Hashem's talking to us. Talking to us. It goes both ways. Goes both ways. Smichad keren leben David avdecha. The sprouting forth of the keren. Keren is an incredible word. Keren Yeshua. The they translate it, but it's really keren kanei shemesh. The rays of the sun are also keren. It's a ray of light that springs forth darkness. Right? Mashiach is always considered the light that springs from the darkness. Utzmichat keren, and it's a double. It's a four. Tzmicha is tzemach, is vegetation. Mapitom that a keren should be a keren, which is usually the horn of an animal, the antler of an animal, whatever. What else is it like?
Light, some formations.
Yeah, so it's light, but it's not vegetation. So how can light spring forth? So it means it springs forth from the darkness like a plant springs forth from the earth. It's emet mi'eret titzmach, that truth will spring forth from the earth because it's buried, hidden. And then arichat ner, and so it really obviously keren is a light ray because ner, the other part of it, it's a light, the candle of the candle of Yishai, the son of Yishai, right? V'arichat ner ben Yishai meshichecha, and the arranging or the arichat ner, the ordering, the placement of the ner, of the candle of the son of Yishai, your Mashiach. Incredible line in our prayers, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and the three holidays. So Keren and Ner are completely consistent. You have to translate Karen as Tzmichat Karen as the springing forth of the light, of the rays, the radiant light, and the Ner is the candle. And in the Gemara, Sutton and Simcha are very interesting. We're not going to talk about it tonight. We're going to get back eventually to all kinds of things like that. But Sutton and Simcha in the system of the Gra are Mashiach ben David and Mashiach ben Yosef. Sutton and Simcha. So we'll get to that. Okay.
That's a question about last week first, about David.
Question about last week for sure. About David.
When you were doing that whole presentation about when Shlomo came looking for the next Melech, that was very moving. And I was thinking about it all week, and I couldn't understand like how Yishai, who was meant to be such a holy man, how is it that he had no clue that David was something special?
All that he was suffering.
Okay, so what?
Being on his own. All that he was suffering is someone suffering something on his own.
Yeah, how come Yishai, being such a tzaddik, was not sensitive to David's suffering? And the fact that David was really his son. It's all part of the drama. It's really, again, the whole reason we're learning about Yosef and David and eventually about Moshe is because all of them are, and what Christianity did is something else. They see that the whole Old Testament is a forerunner or what is it?
Precursor?
It prefigures the figure of Yeshu. That's made up. That's artificial. What we're doing is intrinsic to our system. Is that Moshe, David, and Yosef are the Mashiachim. In other words, that Moshe is part of our system. Is that Moshe comes back at the end. We don't understand how exactly. It could be that 1,000, 10,000, 25,000 of us are one Moshe. But together we constitute something very powerful. That's why being together is such a powerful idea, that each one of us connects to that consciousness, that collective consciousness called Moshe, and we each get it, right? And then the Mashiach will be the one, as I said like 5-6 weeks ago, that the crown will come down on him, the Yechida. It's called the Keter, but in soul levels it's called the Yechida. Gotten the Yechida, not Adam Arishon had the Yechida, but in only potential. Moshe Rabbeinu got up to Chaya. Nobody has ever gotten Yechida, because Yechida means this complete connection with every other soul. And that becomes a lightning rod that everybody else gets it. At that moment that Mashiach gets it. Mashiach himself is waiting for it right now. I'm getting too excited, okay. But wait a second, I just have to finish answering this question. Don't forget your question. So Moshe is a character. He's a living being. He's a soul, and he himself has a part. Yosef, the same thing. David, the same thing. And we all are part of that spiritual counterpart. There was one Moshe, but Moshe brought down that spiritual counterpart into this world and allowed us to partake in it. There's different ways to say it, and I speak with passion and with total belief in what I'm saying because I'm getting it, but not that we understand it completely. It's something bigger than us. So the reason we're learning them, though, is to connect to that level, that frequency that they embodied, to bring more of their presence into the world through us. So your question, Annette, was that why wasn't Yishai? So I would say the only answer of why Yishai wasn't sensitive to David's suffering is that the whole story is a midrashic story that is really much more than just what happened then. It's just like we're going to learn about Yosef tonight. It's really figure, precursor, all these words. It's really prophetic about the messianic process of what Mashiach ben David has to go through. It's told through a story form. It's a wisdom system that speaks through stories. It's the best way to teach, right? Agree?
Yeah, what you did this was very powerful.
Okay. Well, it certainly was for me,
So Moshe
I would bless you with all of you be able to do this with we can do it together. We have to close the technology and just do it. But we should do it, and you should do it on your own.
Moshe has an aspect associated with Malchus because he's always coming with his nets up, and that's why I don't get.
Moshe is Dat. He's also, because he's Dat, he has tremendous connection to all the lower sphero. Dat is called Dat Penimi or Dat Elyon, is Moshe. In other, when it says in the Torah, "Vaydaber Hashem el Moshe lemor," Hashem spoke to Moshe, saying He's speaking to our inner point of godliness. Then when we're going to do this, but when Moshe is told at the sneh, take off your shoes, he takes off his body. And he connects, and this Hashem calls him Moshe twice, because one for the Shorish Neshama above, and one for Moshe, the little Moshe inside, and it connects. And so therefore it's like this powerful thing. And then Hashem says, okay, now you're going to go to Egypt. And Moshe, of course, argues for 7 days and says, no, I'm not going to Paro. He says, yes, you are. You're going to Paro. No, yes, until he says, okay, fine, I'll go. Now, Dat Penimi, internal Dat, has now been up at Sinai. He's been exposed to the most powerful connection to his own soul. He's been given the mission to go back down to Egypt, where he was born. Interesting, right? And he's going to now take the children of Israel, pointing here to my lower part of my body. There's 3 parts of our bodies generally, with everything in Noah's Ark, in the Mishkan. I won't name them now. And 3 sons of Noah. It's an amazingly consistent system. The 3 names of the lower part of the soul, Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama. So he has to go back down to Nefesh, where the children of Israel are in the energy of Am Yisrael is being co-opted by build Egypt. And he has to confront Paro, who is called Dat de Klipa, the Dat of the outside. The Penimi has to confront the outside, and he has to take from Paro what he has stolen. Just like Adam and Yaakov later has to take back from the Nachash what he has stolen. So all this is very true. It would be to make the best animations that you could ever think of. But in the meantime, we have to do it and be excited about these things. So yes, that was a question there that I asked you to hold, and one question or two. Celia, yeah?
I'm just thinking back about Yishai, that maybe he was like sort of not comfortable with the whole thing of David being a child of love. Maybe he was afraid that he would be a cruel and nasty and not kind person.
No, of course. I did offer around 2 months ago. I offered to send you my translation and treatment of the Ari on this. There's nobody else reveals more than this than the Ari. It's called Shara Gilgulim, chapter 38, Hagdama 38, and Sefer Gilgulim, chapter 2, in my computer, waiting to be shared. I just won't send them to anybody unless they ask. I can't do that to anybody. It's not easy stuff. 30. Anyway, anybody out there also. Hi, Rabbi Sutton. I enjoy your sharing. Okay, I'm a cousin. Wow, George last week, God bless him. I know how close you were to him in his Harusa for so many years. Right. Not only that, but thank you. But I'm also giving this Ilui Neshama of Rachel Minda Bat Shmuel. She passed away Saturday night, Denver time. And Moshe, who's usually sitting here, that's his Ima. Moshe is in his 70s, and his mother was 97. God bless. So he got a call Sunday morning, Israel time, away, and he left. So I just spoke to him tonight, and the Ilui Nishmata. Okay. Anybody else also? Yes.
Does the Ari in Shari 38 deal specifically with the Shari? Because I'm going back and reading it, and I didn't write.
He did David, and specifically with David. In the end, he gives a whole opening to Tamar, Rivka, Sarah, Leah, why they came in the way they came in as souls, why they were born where they were born and to whom they were born to.
That's at the end.
Well, at the end of each piece. The end of each is at the end of each David being born the way he was born, the two things that happened wrong that were a cover-up in order to get David's soul into the world. It's very, again, total drama, incredible. You don't have to take everything literally. There's a story going on here that we don't understand. To the best of our ability, we're trying to work with the ideas and to somehow apply them to ourselves. So that we don't have to understand. We don't have to accept the literal meaning of the Midrash. The Midrash is a pini. It's really the repository of Kabbalah from before Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach, where you weren't allowed to say things in an open way, so you used stories. So it's a wonderful thing when you know that. The Rambam writes about this in his introduction to Ein Yaakov and others, and the Gra, of course, and the Leshem. I'll do the best I can to share anything I know about this, so you understand the basics of what to do. And then we'll always go. These next few weeks are still going to continue on in the story form. Before we do any Mashiach ben Yosef stuff, Mashiach ben David, we're going to still stay with Yosef, and perhaps maybe mention once in a while that this is very suggestive. Okay, so who has for tonight? They're here in front of Avraham. I have more here.
Yeah.
Doesn't have? Okay. So the first part is Yosef is sold by his brothers. And you have the text here from the Torah. They sat down to eat a meal. When they looked up, they saw a caravan of Yishmael. This is after they saw Yosef coming, which I spoke about last week. And I see. Let me just explain that I have a folder that I have with all of the MP3 audios of this class, plus all of the PDF texts. And I update them and I make sure that they have everything that we spoke about. Before a class, I try and make it, and then after the class, I fix it out. I'm on it to the best of my ability. I'm on it, and therefore, anybody who wants a link to that folder called GEULAH, so please tell me. That makes it easier than you have. It's a little overwhelming, but at least you have. So we did speak at the end. We spoke out last week, the Sefer HaYashar, on Yosef calling out from the pit. Here we have more of this. It's a different level than Reb Shlomo Carlebach did last week, and that he brought from the Ishbitzer. Again, Midrash is much more the drama of the negative thing of having sold Yosef. The Ishbitzer, and what Shlomo based himself on was very clear. It's not, he didn't make it up, is that they made a deal, and that Yehuda sent Yosef off and said, Yosef, I'm blessing you. And Yosef said, I bless you too, Yehuda. And this beautiful scene that we have that Shlomo brought out, it has to remain there, even though the way we're going to tell it tonight is a different sense to it, a different sense of the pain of it more. That's the most I can say. I don't have an answer for everything. So then what happened to lead up to what we're saying now is that they saw Yosef coming. Hashem had made Yaakov send Yosef, of all things, to go see how his brothers were. Hello, like Yaakov, what are you doing? Don't you know that that's dangerous? Don't you know how your sons feel about Yosef? You sent him anyway. And not only that, he got lost on the way, and he meets Gabriel, an angel. He meets dressed up as a man. You have all kinds of things like that in the Bible, right? In Abraham's life, you have them coming to visit him. Now you have Gabriel just happening to strolling around in the field when Yosef is passing through, looking for his brothers. And oh yeah, they moved on. Go over there. And he hinted in a certain way what they were thinking, but Yosef was innocent. He didn't think that he had done anything to really rile up his brothers so much. It was really, really naive in that sense.
It's really significant that it was Gabriel.
Gabriel, right? Gabriel he fights for us, but he's also, his name is Gabriel, which means Gevurah. I mean, that something has to happen here, which is not going to be easy to take. It's going to be good in the end, because Yosef has to do something very important. Getting it a split screen of what's going on in Shemayim and what decisions are being made and how it unfolds down here. But he directs him to a place called, that's the word that's used, Dotaina. Dotan. And the Rashi there says that some kind of a compact way of saying dot, something that's a negative judgment. So your brothers are judging you right now, and they're wondering what to do with you. Anyway, as Yosef comes into sight, Shimon and Levi say, let's get him. Shimon and Levi, their names are not mentioned specifically here, but in the oral Torah it is. They're the ones who start to get together and do things together. They're very powerful guys. So let's get him. And then when he comes, they decide they're not going to kill him. Reuben says, throw him in the bore. And Reuben tries to save him in that sense. Where is this? Why am I not seeing this already here? Basically, I'm just into what we have here. Verse 25 of chapter 37 of Bereshit. So they sat down after they put him in the bore in the pit, where it says there was no water, and we know that the rabbis say there was no water, but there were snakes and scorpions. We'll see that in the Midrash. So the verse says they sat down to eat, which is very strange. What is that telling us? Some kind of negative level. Sat down to eat. When they looked up, they saw a caravan of Yishmaelim coming forward. Now there's a famous road that comes from up north all the way to Egypt, and it's a spice road, and it was discovered archaeologically that it still exists. Coming down on that road, that is that we learn biblical archaeology is through the stories themselves, things which later on are confirmed archaeology that nobody could have known later in time because something existed before, but it didn't exist afterwards. But thousands of years later, we can know something that even people didn't know hundreds of years after it happened. That's how archaeology works. So there's this definitely a spice route down to Egypt, and it's coming from Gilad. The camels were carrying gum and balsam and resin, transporting them to Egypt. Yehuda said to his brothers, "What will we gain if we kill our brother and cover his blood? Sell him to the Ishmaelim and not harm him with our own hands. After all, he's our brother, our own flesh." And his brothers agreed. The strangers, who turned out to be Midianite traders, approached, and the brothers pulled Yosef out of the well. So there's different ways of translating of Aryeh Kaplan. Who pulled him out of the well? Is we'll see in the Midrash that there are different ways of saying it. There are three groups of people involved here. Perhaps we shouldn't give too much time for it. But what I'm going here for is the things that Yosef had to go through. Being treated that way by his brothers, and then being sold 3 times, and finally ending up in Egypt, is basically the short of it. We'll see in the teachings that we have in the Midrashim and in the Gra, and the other, the Zohar about Mashiach ben Yosef, that in a sense, as it says at the top of the, not only Yosef is sold by his brothers, but Yosef is sold out by his brothers. That's a little bit of a jump into the future. That the brothers will sell Yosef out. Who is Yosef today? Who is Yehuda today? Who is Reuben today? We don't have an exact reading of it, but one possible thing would have been, it was on the table back in the 90s, that all those who were living in Yehuda v'Shomron were going to be sold out. There's a whole plan on the table now with Trump and everything. We'll see how it unfolds. Ezat Hashem, that's not going to happen. In other words, negative things don't have to happen. Maybe something else will happen, whatever. We're still in a test situation. But all these things are foreseen in the way the brothers treat Yosef here in this story. So Yehuda basically does a halfway thing. We'll see later that he could have done better because the brothers listened to him. He could have said, let's not sell our brother at all. Like, what's gotten into us? But according to the Torah, he's the one who gave that suggestion, that proposal. Let's sell him. So again, this whole thing is who pulled him out of the boar?
The brothers have listened to him. I mean, the original thing was let's kill him, and then this.
Right, that was Shimon.
Yes, with a halfway measure.
Yehuda says no, let's not kill him.
Right.
Because what will we do? And Reuben says, no, let's put him in the pit. Reuben, the Torah itself testifies that Reuben's intention was to save Yosef. We'll see why in the end he can't.
Later on, the brothers blame Yehuda for not suggesting that.
So that's what I'm saying.
But they, in fact, listened.
Yes, they would have listened, but there's a would have and there's a what happened. So we just see that what happened.
Yeah, I wasn't meaning that. I mean, was it realistic to suggest that they would have listened? I mean, you're going from one extreme to the other. Let's kill him to let's do nothing with it.
So listen, again, Shimon is, for some reason, very much the one who's volatile in these stories. And the way it's presented is that they made a Beit Din. The Beit Din, a tribunal, to decide, is he a false prophet? In which case, Chayav Mita. But then they said, well, the truth is, we don't know if we're right. We'll put it in the pit, and the snakes and the scorpions there will decide. They have to do what Hashem says. We who have free will, we may be making a mistake. Our way of checking to see if we're right, but then the problem is that since he was not hurt by the snake and scorpions, they should have known at that moment and taken him back. But they sold him. The whole story has a lot of questions. All we can do right now is tell the story and feel the questions. Feel, not field.
It seems like like the Egel, where Aaron couldn't really, there was a momentum there that he had to, kind of go along with it and then, cool them down sort of thing. So.
Yeah, see, it's very good point, Rebecca, that there was like a momentum and it was very hard to stop. That you see, history is run through a combination of Hashem's plan and human free will. Here they say that the way the plan is going to be the plan is going to unfold is based on the qualities or the character traits of the characters. The plan will unfold. How it will unfold is up to how the characters act. So the negative unfolding, something had to happen. Yosef had to go to Egypt, and eventually Yisrael had to go to Egypt. How we would get to Egypt was not determined, let's say, according to this level. According to another level, everything is determined. There's a machloka between the Or HaChaim and the Gra. The Or HaChaim says what I just said about the snakes and the scorpions. We'll give Yosef to the snakes and the scorpions because they don't make mistakes. The Gra says something else. He takes it up to a higher level. And I forgot exactly how to say it. Let me calm down. Okay. So questions are going to be asked all along the way of why this? Why is this happening? Not exactly sure how the Gra says it. It's an interesting thing, and I'll try and next week. So the verses go on here. Let's read them and continue on in verse 30, verse 29. When returned to the well, Reuben already said to them before verse 25, don't sell them in there. There's a problem with translation here of whether it's a bore or a be'er. It's a be'er, it's a well, but it doesn't have water in it, so it's called a pit. Sometimes it's translated as a well, sometimes as a pit. It's the same word in Hebrew, bore. Bore. Reuben returned to the well, was no longer there. Reuben tore his clothing in grief. He returned to his brothers. The boy is gone, he explained. Where can I go? The brothers took Joseph's coat. They slaughtered a goat and dipped the coat in the blood. It's very much like a movie, as I've said before. It goes from scene to scene. It cuts very quickly sometimes. And what you're supposed to do is if you read it once and then read it again, to start to put the pieces together into a scene that you can understand. There's different within one particular scene where there's a boar, and then there's the brothers sitting what is called a bow shot away. They went to sit over here, and then the Ishmaelim or the Midianim are coming from over here, right? So there's a whole scene here. Reuben also, they say, went to serve his father. He had to leave, and then when he came back, it was already hours. Why? We don't understand how time works here, but it was hours. And he says, where's the boy? He's gone. I wanted to take him out, and he's gone. In the meantime, then the verse 2, the brothers took Joseph's coat, which is maybe why Reuben is gone, maybe not easy to know. Verse 31 could be happening while verse 29 is happening. They slaughtered a goat and dipped the coat in the blood. They sent the long, colorful coat and it was brought to their father. That's already telling you a lot of different things that's taking much longer than what's going on in the immediate thing here. We found this, they explained when they returned. They sent the coat on before them, and then when they got there, it's really a future. This verse 32 is telling what's going to happen when they leave the scene here. Or maybe verse 32 actually basically just cuts from this field and goes to where the father is. They sent the long, colorful coat, and it was brought to their father. We found this, they explained when they returned. Try to identify it. Is this your son's coat or not? Yaakov immediately recognized it. So it skips over a lot of what we're going to see in the Midrash of what happened when he was in the bore. Verse 33, Yaakov immediately recognized it. It's my son's coat, he cried. The beast must have eaten him. My Yosef has been torn to pieces. He tore his robes in grief and put on sackcloth. He kept himself in mourning for many days. All his sons and daughters tried to console, he refused to be comforted. I will go down to the grave mourning for my son, he said. He wept for his son as only a father could. The Midianites sold Yosef in Egypt to Potiphar, one of Paro's officers, captain of the guard. So there's a lot being said here that's elastic. It's going in all kinds of directions, and what we want to do is to come back into the scene at the war. I found it interesting, so therefore I took the time to type it out. It's from this book, as I put up last week. It's Sefer Yashar. There is a Jewish English translation of it. This is a translation that was put out in the last few years, but it's by an Englishman from the 1600s. And it's just been a little bit like updated, but it's very, actually it's a better translation than the Jewish translation. I don't know what Jews are into now, but I lent it to somebody. I don't know where it is. I don't have that one anymore. I have this one. So I kind of worked with it and typed from it. And
Who wrote it? Who said that?
Sefer Yashar, the Midrash itself, it claims that it was discovered at the end of the Second Temple, when the Romans were destroying, and they found somebody in a secret room. They broke down the walls, and he was there, and he had a library there. And this is one of the books that came out of it. Academics do not hold by this book, but Rashi and Ramban did have it, and therefore it's something it fills in a lot of holes in the story. And we see very often that Rashi himself, without quoting it, is really seeing exactly what the Sefer Yashar does. It adds to us what the Tanchum and the Midrash Rabbah don't say, and I therefore consider it a very valuable book. We'll see, especially later in the Amtachat theory, about how important it is to have Midrash as a fill-in between the sentence. The Torah is very sparse and terse in terms of how it communicates. Without the oral tradition, or I should say, in positively, with the oral, you can make a whole much more sense out of it. It fills it in and gives you a sense of actually being able to picture it. So, forgive me for making it a very jumpy and bumpy road, but that's the way it is. So the Midrash in Sefer Yashar deals here with how many times he was sold and what happened. Just one scene I want to share with you. You have it for yourselves. On page 2 of this set. In a sense, the Midrash is trying to make sense about the different names of the people involved, of the different groups involved, of the selling of Yosef. It uses 3 terms, Yishmaelim, Midyanim, and Midanim. So the question is how to make sense of that. And the Midrash does it in a very beautiful way. We're not going to do the whole thing, but is that first, Yehuda said, Yishmaelim are coming. It turns out that they were Midyanim. And so they're the ones who take Yosef out of the bore, and they see that he's very beautiful, and they now start passing by to where the brothers work. Apparently, they were out of sight of the bore. So now when they start passing by, the brothers see them, jump up and say, "Where are you taking our slave?" And they say, "Slave? He's a little bit more handsome and more beautiful than all of you put together. Slave? Maybe you're his slaves." And so Shimon jumps up, page 2. Shimon said, "I am Shimon."
The Midianites pulled him out?
Midianites.
They actually pulled him out?
Midian and Adan were brothers, were the sons of Avraham and Keturah.
Right.
Very biblical.
Mm.
Midianites pulled him out. Even though it says, Yehuda says, Yishmael coming, that's next. He didn't, whatever, they may have been dressed like one way or
So they're basically their relatives then.
Yeah, they're all relatives. Okay, Shimon, 4th paragraph, top of page 2. Shimon said, "I am Shimon, son of Yaakov." Before that, the sons of Yaakov approached them and rose up to them and said, "Give us back our servant. Why should you die by the edge of the sword?" And the Midianites cried out against them and drew their swords. This is the best, right? And approached to fight the sons of Yaakov. And behold, Shimon rose up and sprang from the ground and drew his sword and approached them and gave a terrible shout before them. We're going to see this over and over again in this whole story until the very end. Every time these guys shout, the earth shakes. They had what's called nowadays chi. They had chi. Let's just remember that. You'll see. He gave a terrible shout before them so that his shouting was heard at a distance. The earth shook, and the Midianites were terrified, and they fell on their faces in fright. Shimon said, "I am Shimon, son of Yaakov the Ivri, who with just one of my brothers, Levi, destroyed the city of Shechem and the cities of the Amorites. So shall Hashem help me that even if you bring all your Midianite brothers and also all those of Canaan, you will never prevail over me. Now therefore give us back the youth, lest I give your flesh to the birds of the sky and the beasts of the earth." The Midianites were sore afraid of Shimon. They approached the other sons of Yaakov in terror and in fright and pleaded pathetically, "Surely you have said that the young man is your servant, that he rebelled against you, and that therefore you placed him in the pit. What then will you do with a servant who rebels against his master? Sell him to us. We will give you whatever you ask. And Hashem was pleased to do this in order to prevent the sons of Yaakov from slaying their brother. In other words, implication being in the midrashic level that they still had a desire to kill him. But this now was it was presented to them as an option, and they took it. After this, the Midianites regretted that they had bought, doubting the whole story of Yosef being their servant. While discussing the matter among themselves, they saw a company of Ishmaelim coming. They said to each other, let's sell this youth to them and we'll be released from this evil. They did so. The Midianites sold Yosef to the Ishmaelim for 20 pieces of silver, which they had given to him to his brothers. The Ishmaelim took Yosef and let him ride on one of their camels, and they went off toward Egypt. Yosef, they were heading to Egypt, and he lamented and wept. There's a beautiful scene here in the next paragraph. Hashem beheld Yosef's affliction. They were striking him and smiting him, trying to get him to shut up. He was just crying. And so Hashem beheld Joseph's affliction. He brought down upon these men darkness and confusion, and the hand of everyone who had struck Yosef withered. They said to each other, what is this that God has done to us? They understood that it was on account of Yosef. They proceeded on the road and they passed Ephrat, where Rachel was buried. Yosef ran to his mother's grave and prostrated himself on it and wept. Oh, my mother, you who gave birth to me. This is another dramatic scene. This is what the Midrash does that's so precious. It puts words. It gives them what to say. It gives them a mouth to speak. The Torah does not do that. So we don't have to take it literally, but we have to take it. So, this is one of those. Okay, so Yosef ran to his mother's grave and prostrated himself. Oh, my mother, you who gave birth to me, awake now. Rise to see your son. How he's been sold as a slave with no one to pity him. Arise and see your son. Weep with me on account of my troubles. Arouse, my mother, arouse. So this is our prayer. This is his prayer. Mashiach ben Yosef's prayer. All the suffering that our souls have to go through. Right? Last week we said David was very moved when Shmuel Hanavi, when he heard that Shmuel has come. So the same thing here. A mother, right? Rachel Imenu, of all people. Kever Rachel. Arouse, awake from your sleep for me, and direct your battles against my brothers. Oh, how they have stripped me of my coat, and sold me twice for a slave, and separated me from my father, and there's no one to pity me. Arouse and lay your cause against them before Hashem, and see whom Hashem will justify in judgment, whom he will condemn. Rise, my mother, rise, awake from your sleep, and see my father, how his soul is with me this day, and comfort him and ease his heart. You could even say more. Once you get into the character, and you feel Yosef's pain, and you know you're lying on your mother's grave, and you're calling out for yourself and for all of Am Yisrael. You sit with that for a minute. How each of us has some either painful or relationship with our mother, or as I did, I had a difficult relationship until the last 2 years of my father's life, and then I had a tremendous change with my mother. Unbelievable. Whatever your situation was, what a mother is for all of us, right? So whether your mother is in this world or whether your mother is in the next world, so you can talk to your mother, as your mother gave birth to you. And even if you don't cry out for your own pain, but you ask her how she's doing, what's going on, what is your life like in the next world? Do you know about us down here? Is it the things that are happening to me today are through you? Could that be? What's your involvement with us? Are you too high and too much going on in your own life up there to be involved with us? Or do you have something, some aspect of your life is directed towards us? Or is it, if it's not you, is it somebody else? How does it work up there? There are schools up there, there are souls up there, there's a lot going on up there, and there's a tremendous, as we say, there's a 4-story building and they have one-way mirrors looking down. They can see everything. It's not that they're so detached. It could be that there is a concept that the tzaddikim of this generation, when they go up, they sit on the tribunal, the heavenly tribunal, the Beit Din Shemala. The tzaddikim from previous generations are too far up. They don't have that sense anymore of how hard it is to be human. So it has to be somebody who's more recent, who still feels what it feels like to be down here. And then they go on. So is it the same with my relatives? Or is there some kind of, that they have their life up there, and yet they also are connected to us? And that when we speak to them, when we speak a son or a daughter to a mother or father. So just wanted to open that up. And she speaks to him from the grave. The bottom paragraph, 3rd line. My son Yosef, I've heard the sound of your weeping and the voice of your lamentation. I've seen your tears, I know your pain, and it grieves me for your sake. Much grief is added to my own grief. Now therefore, my son Yosef, my son, hope to Hashem, do not fear, for Hashem is with you, and he will deliver you from all trouble. Rise up, my son, go down to Egypt with your owners, and do not fear, for Hashem is with you, my son. And she was still. Yosef heard this, and he wondered greatly at this, and he continued to weep. One of the Ishmaelim struck him and cursed him, but Yosef said to them, may I find grace in your eyes to take me back to my father's house? He will reward you. But they answered, aren't you a slave? Where's your father? And if you had a father, what would you have been sold twice for so little? And their anger burned, and they continued to strike him and chastise him, and he cried bitterly. So you see this story, it unfolds. And they regret also for having bought him. Oh, there's a nice thing here with Yaakov. Back home, all right, fourth from the top, from the bottom, back home. Yaakov refused to be comforted. The Sefer Yashar describes this scene too. Refused to be comforted. It was much, much more than the brothers thought would happen. Why didn't they think? Why didn't they realize? Why didn't they think? How did they do that, right? It was like inconsolable, is like not even coming near. Seeing the incredible grief of Yaakov, the brothers regretted what they had done, but they still didn't tell the truth. They held to the story that a wild beast must have torn him apart. Yaakov commanded them to hunt down the beast. They find a wolf in the fields. They capture it and bring it to Yaakov. Yaakov cried and spoke to the wolf. Why did you devour my son, Yosef? How could you not fear Hashem? How could you devour my son? And Hashem opened the mouth of the wolf, and it spoke, as Hashem lives, who created us on this earth, and as your soul lives, my Lord, I did not see your son, neither did I tear him to pieces. I have come from a distant land. I too am a mother. Actually, I didn't put that in. I too am a mother. I seek my son, who went away from me this day, and I know not whether he is alive or dead. And I came this day to the field to seek my son, and your sons found me and seized me, and increased my grief, and it brought me before you this day. Now, therefore, Son of man, I am in your hands. Do to me what is right in your eyes. But by the life of God who created me, I did not see your son, nor did I tear him to pieces. Neither has the flesh of man entered my mouth all the days of my life. When Yaakov heard these words, he was greatly astonished and sent the beast forth, and she went her way. And Yaakov cried day after day, and he mourned for his son many days. The Ishmaelim sell Yosef to Midanim, the four sons of Medan, who were Midian, both of whom were sons of Avraham from Keturah. Do you desire to purchase this slave from us? They asked. The Midanim, sell him to us, they said. And they purchased him for 20 shekels. And the Midanim sold Yosef to Potiphar. That brings it full story that when you read the story in the Chumash this week, is it this week? Yeah. When you read it, then you'll see that it answers the question of why it says Midyanim, Ishmaelim, and Midanim. So the Midrash really puts it in a very understandable way. The Midrash describes how all the young Egyptian girls came to Potiphar's house when he was finally sold to Potiphar, and they came to gaze upon Yosef's beauty. Potiphar's wife gave an etrog and a knife to each and ordered Yosef to come in to enter. Not being able to keep their eyes off him, the girls cut their hands. Potiphar said to them, you see what happens to you this one time. Think what I have to go through seeing him every day. Yosef completely overcame Potiphar's wife's enticements. She enticed him until she got him into jail, even though the whole thing was a setup, and the husband knew it. But he had to go into jail for 10 years and 2 extra years. Okay, now, the next thing in here, we're not going to read. It's, again, Yosef and his brothers, the Amtachet plan. There's something in between these two, so please, I'll stop for a minute. Any questions you want to ask, any?
It's interesting that the Egyptian priests, who were the judges, also knew there was a setup, because nobody would have cared if the Jewish slave was committed to death or not. That's what normally would be. But somehow or other, for some reason, I've forgotten who says this, that they said, no, let's give him a proper trial. Bring the coat, it was in the hands. If the coat's torn in front, then we know he was approaching. It's torn from behind, now he's trying to get away. From behind, he's innocent. But they still had to say face, and Potiphar next to it, so he still had
Potiphar, saving a face.
But it wasn't just Potiphar, the Egyptian priests realized it was a setup as well.
So there's a few things there about, again, all this is a setup, and that Yosef has to go into the dungeon. How he gets there is like whatever. It's all. So anybody else want to?
Yeah.
Yes.
Going back slightly to the pit.
To the pit.
So throwing Yosef in with snakes and scorpions, so that was like a test for them. But it's strange that they had such certainty that he wouldn't survive and make it back to Israel. They both gave to Yaakov. They had to be so certain he wouldn't survive and come back to the father, and then he turned up a year later or years later. How were they so certain that he was able to survive? They saw that he survived the pit. Thought, oh, hold on, maybe he is righteous, maybe he's not. They weren't sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, survived the pit. They saw that he was taken out. There wasn't enough time for him to be bitten by the snakes and scorpions, but what happened inside the pit is the snakes and scorpions crawled inside of the crevices of the rocks, would dare to touch him. One way or the other, he came out alive, unscathed.
They probably had the ability anyway. So they probably all had the ability to find wild animals, have that level of
good. Maybe there's some things here that I'm sticking more or less to this. I mean, there's probably many things going on here. All we can say though is that the hashgacha pratit, the divine plan is unfolding. The unfolding of the divine plan. That's one of the things Rashi says on one of the verses, where it says there's an expression emek Emek Chevron. He was coming from Emek Chevron. Yaakov was in Emek Chevron or whatever, but Chevron is not an Emek. Chevron is on a hill. So why would the Torah call it Emek, the valley of Chevron? And so Rashi says it has to do with the Eitz HaAmukah, the deep plan of the Creator that was given to Avraham Avinu, that his children would have to go into exile. And it's also a Gezerah Keduma that goes even before the creation to the Shvirat HaKelim. It goes back to a plan that was already put into motion before creation. This is crazy how the rabbis, the sages, have an oral tradition that all of this is, it's the best way to see it is as a movie being directed by a director who already knows the end, who knows the beginning, the end, and who knows all of his characters, and gave Yosef the character to play Yosef, that soul to play Yosef, that soul to play Reuben, that soul to play Shimon, and to this day, our souls have been chosen to play our parts. And when we get that, which is what Shara Gilgulim is about, Sefer Gilgulim, all of this stuff about reincarnation, is that when we get that, then the best thing we do is say, Hashem, help me play my part the best I can. I may not be able to make strides and change everything all at once, but within my life as it is, help me to do the best I can with what I've been given, so that 5 years from now, I will look back and say, unbelievable. And even a year from now, we see it while it's happening, right? But you can look back at who you were 5 years ago, who you were 10 years ago, etc., where your life was, what you were doing, and then you can see, oh my goodness, this is not canny, this is not normal. That's, at least in hindsight, we should have an understanding to the appreciation how our lives are being guided. Talia.
Are there any Midrashim that explain a little bit of, in some situations, why certain figures were picked to play the part that brought the plan, that got the plan going, like Shimon, Levi, Reuven, Yehuda. Why were they picked to do what they did?
Midrash is not going to do that. The Zohar and the Ari are going to do it. The Ari is going to do that. Why Shimon? Who's Shimon? There's a book here I was showing before. This is called Shorshei Neshamot. Shorshei Neshamot by Rabbi Natan Koenig. Natan Koenig. Natan Tzvi Koenig, who passed away a few years ago, was a Breslover. Beautiful man who just was an encyclopedist. He put out a few, this is all quotes from the Ari about under names.
He collects it all.
Here, Balak, Yitro,
Is it translated?
Yosef, no, it's not translated. Akiva, Nadav. It'll go and say what the Ari says about who these were as souls and what their connection was to other souls. Right? So this is, and there's another book called Gilgulei Neshamot, which Miriam gave me once. You still have that? Gilgulei Neshamot by Rabbi Menachem Azariah. Rabbi Menachem Azariah, Mipano, student of the Ari, Italian, Italy. He was a student of the Ari called Gilgulei Neshamot. What is this in English? Do I have it? Did you give it to me? I might still have it. Huh? Rabbi Menachem Azariah Mipano. Mipano. Again, how much the English usually is done by an Israeli who doesn't understand how English works. But whatever, I'll see if I have it in my house.
Also a Yiga one?
The Yiga, that's the original. Is Gilgulei Neshamot. What he does is encyclopedia is that he alphabetizes. Oh my goodness.
Alphabetized.
And then there's an introduction written by Rabbi Yerucham Lehner, who was in New York. It was from the Ishbitz line, and it was a beautiful rabbi in New York, Rabbi Lehner. And he wrote the introduction to Gilgulei Neshamot, which I translated part of in my Well of Living Waters, about what's the usefulness of this whole thing. What's going on? He also wrote the notes and the cross references and everything. Whatever. I'll do the best I can to go into these things in the right way at the right time.
Do you know where it is in that, in the Well of Living Waters?
In what?
Do you know where it is in your book?
Well of Living Waters?
Living waters.
Where?
Well of Living Waters. There's a whole section on
There's a chapter on Judah.
the whole section on who are we? And it's in the first few chapters there. Okay. Where are we? So I thought I was going to stop for a second and we're going to take questions. You know what? Who's
There's a
first?
significance to
Go ahead.
There's a difference. There's the fact that one just took him out, one put him down there, like that obviously has parallels from if it's, well, maybe I'm done.
No. That's the rabbi saw it so significant that the word pasim, kitonit pasim, a coat of many colors, they say that the word pasim is pei samech yud mem, and that they represent four different parts of the afflictions of Yosef. The mem is me'anim, the yud is yishmaelim, the pei is potifera, and the samech. To look it up. I was going to look it up, but I didn't have time. So they
Baked soil? Baked soil?
my God, they memorialized it in that sense, that these are things to pay attention to, and that there will be ashlachot, there'll be ramifications in the future for Mashiach and Yosef. So I'll see if I can find something in the Gra about this. We'll see. Yes, Miriam. No, Celia.
I think that Shimon, like our first encounter with him is this whole they got together, right? And then we hear about when they came to Israel, they were dividing the land. So they gave Levi no Nachala and they scattered them. And their job is supposed to be teachers of Torah. Now, I mean, unfortunately, it's very consistent with what I had in elementary school. They're the nastiest, horrible people in the world for our rabbis. They were really horrible people. But I just wonder, is there something like, why do guys go into chinuch?
I can't repeat all that
Yeah.
right now. Listen, okay, so Celia is saying that Shimon and Levi, because Yaakov, when he on his deathbed said, Yehalekem Yisrael, divide them, don't let them ever get together again, they just make trouble wherever they go. So Levi is going to have 42 cities that he's going to live in, and he's going to be also an itinerant teacher. And Shimon is going to have to be under Yehuda's watchful eye all the time to make sure that he's not doing anything to make trouble. I don't know, whatever.
And on the other hand, they said that all 12 were shlemim, which means that they were completely perfect. So
What's perfect? I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, they were beautiful. They were beautiful. You're beautiful. We're beautiful. We even in our degradation, we are beautiful. In other words, there's good inside evil. One of us, Rabbi Nachman, said that in the last story that he told of the 7 beggars, that there's something wrong with each one of them. The blind beggar, the deaf beggar, the dumb beggar, the one who had no hands, the one who had no feet, the one who was a hunchback. Everybody had something wrong, but in the end of the story, each one of them says, the world thinks I have no mouth, but I know how to speak. The world thinks I don't hear, but I know how to hear. The world thinks I don't. All of behind every infirmity is a special thing, a special thing. So behind everything that's wrong with Am Yisrael right now, Rabbi Nachman said, don't be fooled. We are still the special people that we were in the Tanakh, but it's being hidden. And we are, not only the non-Jews don't see, we ourselves don't see it. We see only the name. So we have to fight our own klipa inside. There's a whole piece that I wrote on the 7 Canaanite nations. The 7 Canaanite nations. I'm going to take questions in a second. The 7 right? So the 7 Canaanite nations, and they correspond to the 7 Sfirot, Chesed, Gvur, Tiferet, Netzach, V'Hod, V'Yesod, V'Malchut. And it's called Eretz Canaan. When we are not shining our Yisrael, when we're not shining the Sfirot, when they're locked in to their klipa, to their shell, called Kanani, Chivi, Chiti, Yevusi, Girgashi, when we release ourselves inside in our own inner work from our own klipa, we become more shayach, more appropriate, more befitting to Am Yisrael, to Klal Yisrael, to Eretz Yisrael, than any war could ever do. Or the real war is the inside. I don't say that there's no need for outside war and for outside army. Hashem, we have awesome soldiers. But the real inner war is to take the klipa off of our own chesed, our own gevura, our own tiferet. So the same thing with any of them, their imperfections. As I said last week and the week before, in India they have perfect masters. In Israel we have imperfect characters who work on themselves. The reluctant prophets, don't send me, anybody else, but not me, baby, I ain't going down there, right? That's who we are. We don't want the job, and but somehow if you force us, we'll come through, right? That's something about Yisrael, that we'll come through. Somebody else wanted to say something. Hi.
There's a very intriguing pasuk in the Medrash, say when Yosef is sold to the second set of travelers, and it says that Kodesh Baruch Hu was pleased with that because it meant that the sons of Yaakov wouldn't kill him. Would you say, does that give us an answer to why all of this happened, why Kodesh Baruch Hu orchestrated it? Because had they not got rid of Yosef, then what would have inevitably happened further down the line, they would have ended up killing him, perhaps. Perhaps it sheds a light on.
I don't know. I would want to say, and we read it. It was in there. It was maybe a little bit of a thing like that. New. This is what stopped them from killing him. But I would think, on the bigger picture, I would think that they are not going to kill their brother. And deep down, they know that.
It seems strange. It's a very strange place to put it. Their fight, particularly, is the fact they're trying to get him back.
Yeah.
It's a very strange time even to
fight to get their brother back. Good.
Well, it's not when they're trying to get rid of him. It's when they're trying to get him back.
Fight to get our brother back. To fight to get our brother back. Okay. I know I'm making trouble by bringing in these midrashim and then maybe not answering all the questions. Forgive me for that. Yes. How are you? How's your Abba?
Hashem sends his regards.
Okay.
The point about the timeline not being completely clear regarding the dipping of the coat in the blood, and the fact that Ruth is not with the brothers for the meal, it reminded me of something that occurred to me for the first time this year. That is, I'm wondering if it's possible that Reuven never knew about the farce of the blood, and actually the brothers hid selling Yosef from Reuven, and he, much like Yaakov, who both we see a parallel in the Psukim that they both tear kriya. Maybe that's suggesting that they both sincerely believe that Yosef was killed. Is there anyone who says that?
Was for so long that the whole thing transpired before he came back, and that he really maybe thought that he was killed. Oh gosh, I don't know. It's a good question. Again, we have to look into that question of how exactly what the timing was. How long was he away? It wasn't a short trip to get from where they were back to Hebron, where Yaakov was.
Didn't they kill the animal and dip his blood in the coat after he came back?
That's what we would think, but it's open, because we saw that the verses are not simple in terms of their timing.
But what if he had asked? Like, hey guys, where is he? And they would have.
Yeah, it could be that he would just ask.
Lied and say,
yeah.
We killed him.
Among themselves, are not going to lie.
The tour guide said it from Hebron, no motorcycle, no.
How long?
Would have been at least 3 to 4 days.
3 to 4 days.
Plus the trip was dangerous. He didn't get to his brothers. He couldn't
So-
have killed along the way.
So I don't have an answer.
So we don't know.
I'm definitely going to look at this. I suggest everybody look at these verses again. Go and see if there's something here that we missed in Bereshit 37. This parsha, so take advantage of it. Not now, but I'm going to try my best to do that. The Torah is giving its story over in a way that it encourages us to say, what? What do you mean? What's that mean? To look it up, to think about it.
Why would you put his beloved son into danger?
Yeah, okay.
Why do you send him to this school?
All right, so what I want to tell you now,
Was he aware of how the others felt towards Joseph?
was who aware? Reuven?
Right, Yaakov.
Was Yaakov aware of how his sons felt towards? Oh boy, these are good questions. It says in the Torah that his brothers hated him and could not speak to him because of the way he told over his dreams to them and then to his father, to their father. Lo yachlu berito b'shalom. They couldn't speak with him because they were honest. They weren't two-faced. They couldn't speak with him in peace because they didn't feel peace toward him. So there, as we said, there was a whole bunch of stuff going on there, and he just played on it, and he fired them up with the way he interacted with them. It's just one thing after the other. The only answer is when we get the very high level to see the whole thing as an unfolding. It comes through their character traits, but the plan, and that's when God's plan meets an imperfect character trait. The character trait is going to fulfill its purpose, but in a way that you wouldn't want it to be. There's again, perfected and not perfected. The question in the end is going to be, why did you give it through these imperfect guys? Why didn't you make it a much more beautiful picture? Because the answer will be that he's a great director and nothing less than the greatest director of ever. The whole movie that he's making is every single problem in it, and because of the profundity of the problems, the solutions will be that much greater because of the problems. Whereas if there was no problems, the whole reason for making the world would be odd. Why make the world? I'm going to make it with problems, and boy, you're going to see problems, and they're going to multiply the problems themselves because they're going to have problems. But you'll see that in the end, all see how everything had a reason, right? That's the divine claim. That's the divine claim of what the Torah is about. So I had to tell you now, before we end, with all the unanswered questions, Yosef in the dungeon. How shall I share? This is in my book, Mashiach and Yosef, Mashiach and David. So let's like this. The Yamtachet plan is already after Yosef got out of dungeon. And he came before, and he stood before Paro. And he spoke to Paro. Now, I mentioned before the English Jewish version, the English Jewish translation of Sefer Yashar. On the cover of it is Paro sitting on top of a throne 70 steps up from the ground, from the palace floor. And it goes according to the story that Paro spoke. Anybody who spoke 1, 2, or 3, or 10 languages would go up 10 steps, and Paro would come and 15 steps, whatever. Yosef kept going up the steps. He spoke every language that Paro spoke to him in. This is the Gemara in Sota 36b, but it's by Sefer Yashar and Shara Gilgulim. So first of all, how did he know all these languages? So there's a verse in Tehillim 81 that we say every Thursday. It says, Idut bi Yosef Samo B'tseto al Eretz Mitzrayim Sfat lo yedati ishma. Edut bi Yosef. There's the only time in the Torah that Yosef's, in the Tanakh, that Yosef's name is spelled with an extra H, an extra Hey. Yehosef. Bi Yosef. Bi Yosef. Edut bi Yosef's son. He placed testimony in Yosef, B'tseto al Eretz Mitzrayim, when he went out over the land of Israel, land of Egypt, which is as a result of this conversation with Paro. where he answered every question in every language. And Paro said, this guy is awesome. And the Egyptians tried to say, he's a slave. And then Paro said, no, but he has shades of royalty. He's not just a slave. This guy is amazing. And he appointed Joseph over. The verse includes a due testimony in Joseph was put when he went out over the land of Egypt because Paro had appointed him as Michelin Melech. Sfat lo yadati yishma, a language I heard, a language Sfat yadati lo, now what did I say? Sfat lo yadati yishma, a sfat, a language that I did not know, I heard. So wait a second, this is going to be an interesting thing. A language, it says one language I didn't know, and I heard it. So we know, it says that the night before he was taken out of the dungeon, Gabriel came to him and said, get ready. Got this new program here, and it's 70 languages in one night. Okay. So Yosef says, okay, start. Okay, so he learned one language, 2 languages, 3 languages, already pushing it. He says, my brain is like, I can't handle this anymore. How many do you expect me to learn? I can't, I'm only human. So Gabriel went up to heaven, and he got a letter from Hashem's name, the second letter of Hashem's name, the Hey. And he brought it down, and he stuck it in Yosef's name, and he made him Yehosef. What is that Hey? What's the Hey? The Yud of Hashem's name is the Yud of Chochmah, which is right brain. And Yosef had that. It was very special. Yosef had that Yud. And the Vav and the Hey of Hashem's name is Keneged Bina's paralleling Bina, which the Gemara defines as Hamevin Davar Mitoch Davar, somebody who understands one thing from another, or one thing from many. In other words, how to draw a rule a rule is to see many examples of it and say, there's one thing that unites, that's the common for all these things. I understand one thing out of many. So that's what that Gabriel gave him, is that Hey. And he added it to Yosef. And with that, he understood the language behind all languages. That's why it says in the verse, a language I heard that I did not know. A language I knew. A language that I did not know, I heard. It should have said I heard a lot of languages in order to fulfill the story of the Midrash. But no, it didn't. That's not. It's because the moment he understood the language behind all languages, then all the other languages fell into place. So it really was only one language that he learned. And therefore the verse says, Sfat lo yadati yishma.
That language of all languages, just to be a technical point, must have been Chachma Shebabina.
Very good. It's a good thing. Chachma Shebabina, because it was a Bina, it was the Hey of Bina, but it was definitely an incredibly all-inclusive thing. Joining with the Yud of Yosef, perhaps. Okay, now. So Yosef now comes out of the dungeon, and he's able to speak 70 languages. And the Gemara in Sotas 36b says that he then spoke Lashon HaKodesh. Now, what's Lashon HaKodesh? It's not Hebrew, per se. It's a language of consciousness which is expressed most beautifully in Hebrew. In other words, the language of Yeshaya is not Hebrew, it's Lashon HaKodesh. Of course, though, we can read it as Hebrew, but really behind that is Lashon HaKodesh. What's Lashon HaKodesh is a language of consciousness. So it's the language beyond all languages, and we spoke some of that, whatever that was, the language of Lashon HaKodesh, into Paro's ear. Paro said, what? Teach me that. And he tried to teach him, and the Gemara says he couldn't get it. And so Paro said, don't ever tell anybody that you know more than I do. And he said he made him take an oath. And then the Gemara skips to the end of the story, and later on, when Yaakov makes Yosef swear to bury him in Canaan, he comes to Paro and he says, I have to bury Machar in Canaan. And then Paro says, bury him here. But he says, but I swore to my father. And so Paro says, go back on your oath. And so Yosef says, shall I go back on the oath that I made to you also? And Paro says, okay, go. So that's a little piece of the Gemara there. in front of Paro. He speaks 70 languages, and he's able to give over the meaning of the dream, of Paro's dream of the dream, and Paro says to him, he's an ish chacham v'navon. He has chokhmah and he has din. And nobody in Egypt has that kind of wisdom that he does, and therefore he was raised up above everything. And this, of course, now sets the stage that he puts forth this plan of the 7 years of plenty, and he gets ready. So by the time 2 years of the famine has gone by, we come now to Yosef setting up and getting ready for his brothers to come down to Egypt. That's where the next piece starts. On page 1, 2, 3 of the Amtachat plan, which we have to do next week. We also have to do Hanukkah. What can I do?
The story of Yosef and Hanukkah, there's also a deep connection to the Hanukkah story.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic. We don't have time for everything. We just have to do it all. But so that's where this next thing starts, is that Yosef sets up a plan that when his brothers are going to come, they're going to have to come. He's going to meet with them. And how that unfolds is what I call the Amtachat plan. I want you all to be able to tell that over this week at Shabbat table. What's the Amtachat plan? Why is it this word mentioned 15 times in one parsha, not before and not after? What does it mean? Why is it used? And what is its secret meaning? You have it now with you. All right, thank you.
Go ahead.
From which Tehillim is the pasuk?
81. 81. Thursday's Tehillim from Yom Hamishi, from Natseach HaLagitit.
Can I ask
Which
you?
Yes.
I'm learning Nefesh Simsum right now.
You're learning Nefesh Simsum now.
Reading that translation.
Yes.
Anyway, question, it talks there about when the part where it talks about the angels and when we do Kedusha, that's what activates the angels to do what they can do. Does that mean that they can't do they were each given a task to do? They unable to do the task they need to do unless we do things down here? That's something that exists outside of
Yeah, so the Nefesh HaChaim writes a beautiful thing that the angels are not allowed to sing song and even say Kedusha before we do it down here.
Right.
It's not we can't do anything without us doing it, but this is a special case where the symbolism is that we have to be, the rule is that we have to be the ones who awaken from below, and then the awakening is from above.
Okay.
They can then channel down what they need to channel down, but we only after we do what we need to do. There are ways to get around this rule. There's a beautiful piece about this in Rabbi Nachman and others, where Hashem says that we can't do what we need to do.
That's how he says in Mashlichas then? That's like
And he sends us hidden hints, and he awakens us in very subtle, because then he gives us the ability to make our big normal rules of the game is once he has made creation and he's given the Torah to us, then the ball is in our hands, and we have to be the ones who arouse and awaken ourselves from below, and then the shefa can flow from above.
And that's the same with so that applies to the Shul. They say every malach has their own special tafkid, but they actually say that the same that applies to everything they do then.
I'm not sure if I'm wise enough to answer on everything that angels do, but the general principle is that we have to be the ones to do something below
to get them to do what they need to do.
But as I said, there is a fail-safe that even when we can't need to do, that Hashem sparkles His light down into our soul and awakens us.
Mm-hmm.
But generally speaking, the rule is that we have to be the ones who begin from below. That, again, all I can do is work with general principles. The specific here, in terms of that particular Kedusha, it's in my book, and a World of Infinite Blessings, chapter 10, where I really go into what Kedusha is and all of its aspects, and what we do down here, and how when we're saying Kedusha, the shul lifts off into another dimension. But if you don't have the eyes or the heart to want to see that, then it's very mundane, and it's just another thing of the prayers, and that's all it is. You're lifting off. You're not an earth plane anymore.
Is that play also for Davening In the morning, you have to do the minyan.
You can't do Kedusha without a
Oh, so you're
minyan.
talking about, there's a little thing we do, we talk about it before we say Shema, but it's not the same thing as.
It's a good point. The difference between Kedusha when you're sitting and you're just saying over what the angels say, and Kedusha when you're doing the Amidah, the repetition. But even if there's something you cannot say unless there's a minyan, you can't say it. Meaning to say you cannot articulate it with your mouth and your voice. You can close your mouth and you can read it and sound it, or read it and think it. You can say Baruch Hu in your mind. You can say Kaddish in your mind. You can say Kedusha in your mind. You can say a lot in your mind as long as you don't open your mouth. In other words, it have to transfer from Olam Hazeh, which is mouth, up into mind. This is true Jewish meditation. You can meditate on Kaddish. I guarantee you, if you meditate on the words of Kaddish, you will see a level of Kaddish that you never heard when you were hearing it with words. Because speech is pagum, it's blemished. It's so easy to say a word. That's one of the reasons we don't say Hashem's name. But whatever the case, if you ever have a case where you want to say something, but there's no minyan, you can't say it. Everybody says, you cannot say this. You can, but you can't say it, but you can think it. And thinking involves even making sounds. There's a lot of gradation between speaking and thought. Anyway, that helped. God bless everybody. Thank you so much.
Should we not be learning it? Face. Then I'm not to learn.
No, learn it.